Hi everyone, Professor Giles again, and we're going into our third video lecture for this one chapter. Just because there's so much information that I want to give you, I'm going to try to get through Michelangelo and Raphael here in this 15 minutes. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Talking about Michelangelo Buonarroti, and really, in many people's minds, in my mind, he's the greatest artist ever. Not trying to be a fanboy or anything like that, but everything that I see of his has something special about it. Many artists have one or two masterpieces in their lifetime, and he had masterpiece after masterpiece after masterpiece. Yeah, art is in the eye of the beholder a little bit. Argue about that phrase. But I truly hope that you can see something special in many of these works. So let's talk about his early influences. He's becoming an artist at a time when he has classical artwork around him. Okay, he's born to a family that's getting on hard times. They've been somewhat well off before they're on hard times, and he goes to live with another family as an infant. And the father in that family is a stone cutter in the quarries. So he's cutting marble. So he gets to know what marble is like at a very early age. Okay. Later on, when he becomes a student at the Medici family palace in Florence, he has this piece, which is called the Belvedere Torso, that's from ancient Rome. He's looking at this almost every day and sketching it, and there are sketches of it, where the musculature, the angle, the pose really influences him, and we see that later. So keep that pose in your mind. Also, when he's somewhat still of a young man and he's in Rome, this great piece that we studied before during Hellenism, the Laocoon, and there's about four or five different ways to say that I've heard, this gets dug up in Rome, and he helps excavate it. In fact, there was a scandal a little bit saying that Michelangelo actually created this piece and then put it in the ground and then had it dug up as if it had been discovered. Obviously that's not true, although early in his career he did do that with another smaller piece. That's a whole different story. So those were his influences. Here are two of his earliest works. Here, he's born in 1475, so here he is, 15 to 17 years old, and he's creating this piece of marble that's almost perfectly flat with just a little bit of relief sculpture cut into it. So this shadow here is only created because there's a light coming from right to left across it. This is only about, I'd say, 3/16 to a quarter inch deep. Not very deep at all. Virtually flat, but it's of the Madonna, the Virgin Mary, with Jesus actually nursing, which you never see that in the artwork. So he's going out on the edge as a young man. But look at the subtlety. Look at this little arm behind the baby. He's relaxed. Look at the loving tenderness here that Mary is doing as she's sitting there. And then there's these little cherubs up here. Now, strange thing is her foot here. And then this is a little bit strange how he's in the background, but it looks like he's talking directly to her. So he's not a mature artist yet. Here's another piece of a battle. It looks very much like the Roman sarcophagi in the late Empire that we looked at of the battles. Very deeply incised. The bodies are all very well created, and this is just nothing but men fighting. And this piece is about, a foot tall or so, somewhat small, but you really see that he can control what he's making here. And here he is, only like 17 years old. Okay, think about how old you guys are and what you've done in your life and what you've created. And he's doing this. So very quickly he's noticed as being a great artist around Florence. And let me fix that. Okay, and he's hired to create a crucifix out of wood, and it's just marvelous. Does it look like his later work? No, as he's really not a mature artist yet. But this is, I think, the turning point right here, where he's creating a Bacchus. Bacchus is the god that brought wine to the human race within Greek mythology. So here we have not a muscular god, but we have a god with a bit of a tummy on him, some fat on his arms, underneath his armpits, and he's drunk. He's popped. He's staggering. He has his alcohol, his hair made of grapes, and you just don't see that. Compare this with the great Greek and Roman gods, and they're all lifted up and perfect, but this is not. And then we have the satyr here stealing the grapes. But the real turn, why he became a famous artist, is the Great Pietà. It's housed in St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican, outside of Rome, and it really turns his life upside down. He goes to Rome and he gets hired by I believe it's a French cardinal, to create a Pietà. This is something that the Italians just would not do. As we see on the Rotgren Pietà from Germany, it's just too grotesque. But he takes it on as a young artist. He needs to do the work. So he takes it on, and he has this large piece of marble. From top to bottom here, it's about 5 feet tall, so Jesus and Mary are both just at or just below life size. And what stands out here? Mary is in the pose of that typical symbolic, the Virgin pose. Her head is covered, her head is tilted, she's very pensive, she's touching Christ here, her hand is out, asking us to consider him, but instead of being a baby on her lap, it's a full-grown man after the crucifixion, and he's dead. So she is holding her child on her lap. Notice the weight of his body, this curve, that it actually looks like there's weight coming down on her lap. And how does he do that? He cuts deeply here so that the body looks like it's floating and is only supported on both of her knees. Okay, look at the weight here. The flesh is poking through between her fingers, that her fingers are actually going into the flesh and to his ribs to make contact to actually support him. That shows weight. Look at the bulge here, the muscles that are going up because of her hand being underneath. Okay. The view here, bad slide, but a little bit better view down on it. And this piece is actually created and finished all the way around, because originally you could actually walk all the way around it. Oh, let me go back here. But now, because it was attacked in the late 70s by a madman with an axe and knocked her nose off and a few fingers, now it's behind bulletproof glass and you can't get close to it, which is really sad because it takes away from the experience. I've been there 3 times now, and it is spectacular even like this. Now, from above, here's Jesus, here's his mother. Is there a problem here? Yeah, she looks younger than him. Due to the Catholic dogma, he tried to get out of it, explaining it away. That's a whole nother story. Now, this is the only piece that Michelangelo ever signed. And he signed it here on the ribbon going from her shoulder down across her chest. And it's a great story saying that after it was created and it was becoming popular, Michelangelo was in the church where it was originally set and saw 2 people there, and they were discussing who the artist was. And they said, "Oh, well, it's this artist from such and such a city." And they didn't say it was Michelangelo. They got it wrong. So the story says that Michelangelo came into the church after hours, late at night. Some say that he broke in with his tools, and he, in one night, wrote, "Michelangelo Buonarroti, a Florentine, made this." And really it was lifting himself up, but it's the only time that he created anything with his name on it. So we better get going. And then because of that, he went back to Florence to create the David. He was back in Florence, his hometown, and there's this huge block of marble that several artists had tried to create something out of. They failed. It's an imperfect piece of marble, and he takes it and creates this colossal David, 13 and a half feet high from his feet up to the top of his head, I believe. Some people say the column that he's sitting on is included. But he takes about 3 years to do this. And really, it's one of the great pieces of art of all of history. If the Pietas there, this is too. Now, this was created to go somewhere on the high areas of the Duomo. So this is not to be looked at right in front of you, almost at eye height. This is to be looked at from 100 feet below. So that's why it's so massive. And it's great because he does a couple things here that are strange. This hand is too big. That hand is too big. His head is too big. His hair is too big. So from this angle, it just doesn't look right. His body is actually somewhat flat. Okay? But remember, it's supposed to be looked at from below, looking up. Okay? So the thickness of his body would not have mattered as much. Now, I love to show the images that you don't see elsewhere. You can actually walk around the David, and here's the back. You can see the sling here going down his back. That's what this is. And in his hand, and I never knew this when I was in college taking art history, but he actually has a stone in his hand. Okay. Now, here it is with the crowd. You see that he's positioned above everybody, just how massive he is. Now, why is he nude? Now, you accept this, maybe you don't want to, but he's nude because in the story, he says, well, the king wants him to wear his armor, but he rejects it. So he goes out. It doesn't say he puts anything back on. Now, yes, any self-respecting Jewish man during that time period would not be found naked, but it shows that he had no other weapon except God, that his reliance was purely on God to get Goliath into his sights so that he can kill him. So really, I love that, showing that dependence. I could go into that where it was originally set, but I'm not going to. A little bit better image. You can see pop marks, see how deeply cut everything is here. And then how big is it really? These are people cleaning David. He has a cleaning every few years, and he had a deep cleaning just within the last few years. That's a scene where very in ancient times where his arm was knocked off by a mob. Here they are cleaning again, and every so often he does need to be dusted off. And they do that work at night. Okay. Some of the things that he also did, this became famous in Monuments Men, the great horned Moses that he did for Julius II. I just love that. It was supposed to be part of a grand tomb that he didn't get to, and that's really the only piece. Instead of doing 40 or so sculptures, he only finished one. Here are some that are unfinished. He's a painter with oil paints. And just real quickly, the Sistine Chapel. I just want to run through some images, and you can look online to see all those. You can look back at this later, slow this down, hit pause, of how this is constructed. It really has a rhyme and reason to it, and it really is beautiful. And he did the sacristy at the Medici Chapel. And I can't go on here because we're almost done, but the Last Judgment, which to me is one of my absolute favorite pieces of artwork. And I love the symbology of Christ here bringing judgment down, and the martyrs there beside him and those people in heaven. Okay.